USAID or US scam, which is probably more appropriate, Sam. And again, I'm not gonna belabor the fact or all the stats about all these ridiculous and quite frankly American undermining conduits and NGOs that this agency's been dealing with for who knows how long. By the way, I will say this, including, I just read this morning, in fact, I think I took a screenshot of it, just read this morning about one of these pipelines. It's really a money laundering operation when you look at it in so many ways. Ended up funding George Soros, the now, thank God, former DA in Los Angeles County. I forget how much money they actually got from USAID through, I think it was one or two steps, and went right to his campaign. It's taxpayer money. And, so now Elon Musk is in there, and now it's kind of been absorbed temporarily by the State Department, by Marco Rubio.
Mm-hmm.
And, I want to get your take on that. This is, and again, like I said, I'll plead ignorance. I didn't know what the hell USAID is or was until just, a week ago. So I don't know if you're familiar with it before. What is your take about the ramifications of this? And by the way, why are so many people in a particular party pushing back so hard about simply having the books open and finding out where the money's going?
Right. So USAID used to exist in a different form under a different name, and I'm spacing on the exact name, something similar. Before it became this is years ago now, it became a completely independent agency. So there were programs like this run under the rubric of the Department of State. Nothing like the scale we're talking about now. And then USAID was created and became friggin' Frankenstein's monster. And it's, a couple of dimensions. One is, obviously, there's nobody there who's actually thinks they're accountable to the U.S. taxpayers. So there's anybody who's got a bright idea at USAID, and they're the ones who think it's a bright idea, just decides to spend millions of dollars on name any stupid idea you can come up with.
They're all there.
And they're all there, literally funding transgender surgeries in Guatemala and, just madness. You can't think of the most insane thing you can think of, and they will still have thought of something crazier. So first of all, there's the just wasting money element, the fiscal irresponsibility element of this, which is enormous because we're not talking about trivial stuff. We're talking about billions of dollars. Then, even worse, is the political agenda here, and something that sure smells a lot like corruption here, right? And not just pushing a political agenda, but manipulating the American people and getting involved. In all kinds of things that you're like, guys shouldn't be within 10 miles of that. So for instance, there's so much information coming out that everybody's having a hard time digesting it all.
Yes.
But one of the things I was digging into yesterday was huge amounts of U.S. government money going to fund the alleged news platform Politico, reasonably well known if you follow American politics. So basically, as far as I can tell, USG has been keeping Politico afloat and keeping them in business. Not minor amounts of money, huge amounts of money. Okay, well, that seems totally inappropriate to begin with. Why the hell are we funding them? But then you start looking at what Politico was involved in. They helped bury the Hunter laptop story. They helped push the 51 supposed spies letter. All of these critical points where clearly the agenda was get Biden in the White House or keep him in the White House and destroy Trump and MAGA. And Politico's way out front on all these issues, but it's the U.S. government that's paying that pretend private platform to do this. And now you're like, okay, well, this is way more than just wasting money. This is immoral, almost certainly illegal. The U.S. government, in effect, is maintaining fake private news sources to influence the American people and I use in Politico as an example only because I read at some length about it yesterday, but I've seen in passing all sorts of similar information coming out about connections between USAID money and all sorts of political actors. Of course, theoretically, once upon a time, they were supposed to be doing things like helping people in West Africa develop free and fair electoral systems or something like that. That was figure out how to conduct an actual democratic election. And now they have morphed into we're manipulating and controlling politics in the United States. It's really terrifying. One of the hard things here is Trump can, I'm sure, cut the budget. He has definitely put Rubio back in charge so they can rein in this. I believe USAID was created by statute.
Mm-hmm.
Congress created it.
Mm-hmm.
So to actually formally kill the thing will require going back to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And as you noted, I mean, the Democratic Party is going to try to make this a case of Trump's a dictator, Trump's a Nazi, Trump's destroying, Trump's against these political agendas, that kind of thing. So they're going to try to make a cause out of it.
Yes, they are. And it's very interesting, the strategies this administration is using. And in other words, in this case here, one of the problems for the opposition to pulling back the curtains, to actually doing real audits here, one of the problems for them is like, oh, really? So you do think it's okay for taxpayer money to fund George Soros? You do think it's okay for taxpayer money to go to Politico? You do think it's okay to fund LGBTQ plays in the South American country, and on and on and on? They're going to have to make that argument as to why those are good and proper and ethical uses of taxpayer money. So it's, again, people are going to be forced to really reveal what they stand for and why they stand for it. So I agree with you about it. It was Congress that created this organization. So now, does the executive have the power to really specify how funds are used or things like this? I think so. Can it kill it? No. But this sets up the argument now. This brings things to light. It peels back the curtain. Everything's in the sunlight now. And I think this is the bigger strategy. Okay, you know what? If I go out and I aim to achieve these 100 things and I achieve 50, that's 51 more that's ever been achieved in the last 30 years. So I think that's what we're looking at here. And I'm glad that we're going down that road. By the way, if you would entertain me here, this was actually from John Hatami. This was one of the candidates that ran against George Gascon in Los Angeles County. He's still an assistant DA now. And I know John, but this is he posted on X this morning. USAID gave $27 million to the Tides Center and Foundation, who in turn gave millions to Fair and Just Prosecution, and who was in a part of Fair and Just Prosecution, George Gascon. So this is really the money laundering operation. One small example. And if anybody thinks that even that one example is okay, then you're the one who does not believe that government should be reined in, that there should be more oversight. Again, that is just one tiny example. So